Rules for thee, but not for me. We hear this kind of stuff all the time. A lawsuit was initiated against Trump several years ago. He lost. They said, you can't block people on Twitter anymore. He appealed. He lost. He's challenging another court ruling, and we have an update on Donald Trump's lawsuit from just a couple days ago. But guess what? This is backfiring on the left, because now Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and some other Democrats have no choice but to unblock their critics. But AOC is refusing, and she's giving some pretty weak arguments. Now, something interesting happened. Columbia University, the Knight Foundation, I believe it's the Knight Columbia, some journalistic enterprise, they put out a tweet a while ago saying, you have to unblock people. She didn't. They've now sent an open letter saying, your arguments are wrong, you've lost, and you must abide by the court rulings. Which draws up this huge issue of why you think you can sue the president, not her personally, and then cheer and celebrate when you win, and then refuse to play by the same rules. It's a double standard, and it can't exist. So AOC must abide by this. She's actually being sued by several people, including YouTuber and now congressional candidate Joey Salads. Well, let's take a look at the latest update here from Newsweek. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez must unblock Twitter users because it is unconstitutional, First Amendment group tells Democrat. Now, before we dive into the story, head over to youtube.com/timcastirl for my latest channel. There's a video up explaining the goal of the channel. It's going to be an on-the-ground travel vlog and news reporting venture in the van, and we're getting close to launch. So if you want to see that kind of content, go subscribe, youtube.com/timcastirl. But let's read. They say, AOC and President Donald Trump have at least one thing in common. They like to block people on Twitter. But a First Amendment foundation at Columbia University is advising the freshman New York Democrat to unblock users on her personal account because the act by a public official violates the U.S. Constitution based on a recent court ruling involving Trump and an appeals court defending the ruling. Now, before we move on, I want to point out this really interesting thing. Trump and AOC are fighting the same fight right now, and strangely enough, they've done this in the past. There was one, I had this stat, I don't have it pulled up, but there was a stats that I had based on how often a politician sides with Trump's agenda. And Ocasio-Cortez actually sided with Trump's agenda more than any other of the progressive Democrats, but not for the same reasons as Trump, notably funding the government. Trump said no, AOC said no for different reasons, but this is a common thing we see. Perhaps it's because there's some kind of populist idea behind each, but one's more left-wing and one's more right-wing. I don't know. Let's read on. Newsweek says, while there may be reasonable restrictions that don't go to the specific views that are being expressed on Twitter, at the end of the day, the First Amendment prohibits public officials like Representative Ocasio-Cortez from silencing critics because of the views they're expressing. Carrie DeSalle, a staff attorney for the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, told Newsweek. DeSalle is one of several legal experts from the New York School who signed a letter that was sent to the freshman Democrat on Wednesday warning her of the constitutional violation she's committing by blocking Twitter users because she disagrees with their views and criticism. Now, of course, interestingly, AOC is trying to play the hate speech angle, saying it can lead to real consequences. They must be banned. But I don't see her arguing that same thing for Donald Trump, who's the president, who actually has serious security issues. So there's a real problem here that it's not just a rules for thee but not for me, but it's a double. It's twofold. It's multiplying itself. AOC believes she shouldn't have to unblock people because they're harassing her and it's her personal account. Well, it's a similar argument Trump made. But the Knight Institute said, no dice. You talk about policy on your Twitter account. You don't get special treatment. But then she talks about how hate speech and harassment leads to real threats. But you don't say that for Trump? No. Okay, well, let's read on. They say, former Democratic New York State lawmaker Dov Hikind and GOP New York congressional hopeful Joseph Saladino are in the midst of separate federal lawsuits against Ocasio-Cortez for blocking them on the social media platform. As of Thursday afternoon, both men confirmed to Newsweek they remain blocked. This practice is unconstitutional, and we are writing in the hope of dissuading you from engaging in it, DeSalle and her colleagues wrote to Ocasio-Cortez. Now, here's the thing. Ocasio-Cortez responded to the news. But we'll get to her tweets directly where she tries playing this double standard game. Let's read on a little bit more. They say Ocasio-Cortez's office did not respond to Newsweek's request for comment. A federal appeals court ruled last month that Trump cannot block users on Twitter, despite it being through his personal real Donald Trump handle. because the digital platform is viewed as a public forum for officials. The account is used, quote, to conduct official business and to interact with the public, the court ruled, rendering the president unable to bar the general public from accessing the information he disseminates. The Knight Institute represents the plaintiffs in the case. Wow, wait, whoa, really? That's right. Yes, actually, I have that pulled up. I didn't know that was the ongoing Trump thing was still with Knight. So this is really interesting. Knight is the group, actually, that has filed the suit. Check this out. On July 11th, 2017, the Knight Institute filed a lawsuit in federal court against President Trump and his aides for blocking 7 people from the real Donald Trump Twitter account based on their criticism of his presidency and policies. They say, as of now, July 9th, 2019, in a 3-0 decision, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit affirmed the district court's holding that President Trump's practice of blocking critics from his Twitter account violates the First Amendment. The government petitioned for a rehearing en banc on August 23rd, 2019. So that's the latest update, and I'll get to that. There's a lot going on here. But I want to just stress, as we move into Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's statements on the matter, I'm sick and tired of the double standard. Why is it that they can call for banning people they don't like and talk about how hate speech is a problem, and then when the law comes down and says fine, they refuse to play by the same rules? Well, Trump unblocked many people, and my understanding is not everybody. So he said fine, but he's fighting back. AOC said, I don't care, but it's the left that went after Trump. Well, I will say the left is absolutely not unified, even the far left. There are many disparate factions on the far left, and certainly the moderates are going to war with the far left Democrats. This is more of a resistance side of the left going after Trump. But AOC is one of the biggest critics of the Republicans and Trump, and it seems like she's avoided weighing in on this specifically because she's in the wrong. So here's what we have. Columbia University sent this tweet out saying, late yesterday, Knight Columbia sent this letter to AOC urging her not to block Twitter users on the basis of viewpoint. She said, I have 5.2 million followers. Less than 20 accounts are blocked for ongoing harassment. Please. 0 are my constituents. Harassment is not a viewpoint. Some accounts, like the Daily Caller, posted fake photos of me and abused my comments to spread it. No one is entitled to abuse. Sorry, AOC. That's not abuse and it's not harassment. Blocking a Democrat, a former Democrat or current, and a House candidate, Joey Salads, because they criticize you is not harassment. More importantly, the Daily Caller is a news outlet. Sure, they're partisan, fine, but now you're violating the press, not just your critics. They are absolutely allowed to report on whatever they want. I think there are some limitations, but for the most part, yeah. Like, they can't publish. Actually, no, I think they can publish basically anything, right? Like, even government secrets. Journalism is protected under the First Amendment. So why does AOC think she's even beyond speech? And now moving into the grounds of the Daily Caller shouldn't be allowed to engage with her tweets. That's a step over the line. She said, people are free to speak whatever bigoted comments they like. They do not have the right to force others to endure their harassment and abuse. And this is the game we often see that I find so personally offensive. You're not being harassed. You're being criticized. And you're a public official with 5 million followers. Welcome to the real world. It's an arena you chose to enter. And one of the things that makes this country so great is that we can tell politicians like you to screw off. And we can tweet at you all day, every day. There are limits. You can't send threats. You can't incite others to violence. But I can tell you whatever I want. No. Blocking Joey Salads is not stopping harassment and bigoted speech. You're just blocking someone who's a critic of yourself because you can't stand it. We cannot. There's a reason why we have the First Amendment, okay? Because the Founding Fathers understood we don't want to live in a world where you can't walk up to a politician and give him the finger. No, we are not a country of kings, okay? We are a country of people, for the people, by the people, and you are just another person, and you might not even be in office in 2020. Maybe you'll get reelected. I don't know. We will never, or at least we should resist at all costs, a future in which we are not allowed to criticize politicians, especially a news outlet. So no, you don't get to claim, oh, but they're harassing me. Well, here's what she says. This is from back in May, when someone was talking about the issue of hate speech and things like that. She says, what people don't, maybe do realize, is when organizations air these hateful messages, my life changes because of the flood of threats they inspire. I've had mornings where I wake up to the first thing I do with my coffee is review photos of the men who want to hurt me. I've got to tone language down on YouTube because unfortunately YouTube is really strict. She said, I don't even get to see all of them, just the ones that have been flagged as particularly troubling. It happens whenever Fox gets particularly aggressive and hateful too. Young interns have to constantly hear hateful messages, far beyond disagreement from people who don't even rep. Now, that's wrong, okay? Harassment is wrong. The problem is, Ocasio Cortez and many of the people on her in her tribe, whatever you want to call it, conflate criticism with harassment. Maybe it's because they're just soft and fragile and overly sensitive people who haven't, actually seen the real world. So when someone says a mean word, they say, help, help, I'm being harassed. Or it's likely they probably get some really, really nasty phone calls. However, if any of these phone calls actually crossed the line into illegality, she works for the government. They would go after these people. Many of us who don't have that luxury of government security details and government protections we have to endure the brunt of this kind of speech all day, every day. But you know what? You very rarely ever hear me talking about it. And I have I don't have as many followers as she does, but I've got, like 1.6 million across Twitter, YouTube, and like Instagram, Facebook. So it's a lot. And I get a lot of comments, and I get a lot of tweets, and they are horrible. And you know what I do? I ignore them. I ignore them. People tweet at me all day and night. They respond to my tweets all day and night. So be it. I'm not even a public official. So look, Trump shouldn't be blocking people, okay? And neither should she. But she says this. All of this is to say that words matter and can have consequences for safety. For those who believe in, quote, free speech, whose free speech do you believe in? Because some folks using free speech to defend racism are also supporting folks passing laws to allow running over protesters. That seems absolutely absurd, and I have no idea what she's talking about. But I believe in free speech for everybody, even the people I don't like. Even the people who want to, they want to shriek Orange Man bad all day, every night. And it makes me, it's so annoying when I go to Trump's tweets and I see it, but you know what? They're allowed to. I don't really get that upset by it. But all of this stuff backfires. It backfires over and over again. And I want to show you some instances where her idea of policing speech won't work, but I want to make sure I get to the latest news about Donald Trump. See, here's the thing. Trump and AOC, they're fighting the same fight, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. Donald Trump challenges a ruling that prevents him from blocking Twitter critics like Chrissy Teigen and Rosie O'Donnell as DOJ officials argue it's a personal account. That's literally what Ocasio-Cortez argued as well. But the Knight Institute made it clear. In their open letter, they say this. In pending litigation, your attorneys have argued that the AOC account is not subject to the First Amendment because it is a personal account. As we have explained above, that characterization is incorrect. Further, while we understand that you have another account that is nominally your official one, the fact remains that you use the AOC account as an extension of your office. Notably, the Second Circuit rejected President Trump's argument that his account is a personal one even though he has other accounts at POTUS and at White House that are nominally official. The court wrote, quote, the First Amendment does not permit a public official who utilizes a social media account for all manner of official purposes to exclude persons from an otherwise open online dialogue because they expressed views with which the official disagrees. They go on to say, we urge you to unblock these people. So guess what? Trump is wrong too. Trump is wrong, and so is AOC. And that's okay. You know why? Well, Trump did unblock a lot of people, and he's taking the issue to court. AOC, however, is being sued because she is refusing. Now, I'll admit, Trump is also, my understanding is Trump hasn't unblocked everybody, but he's unblocked some people. I could be wrong. So at least Trump's given a little bit, and he's taking it to the courts to try and win. But in the end, as it stands right now, both Trump and AOC need to unblock everybody. And that's true for all politicians, and I believe even public officials. They say, let me read a little bit into what Trump is doing. They say in court papers filed late on Friday by the U.S. Justice Department, Trump sought a rehearing by the full Second Circuit U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New York, calling the 3-0 decision fundamentally misconceived. Both Twitter Inc. and the White House have declined to comment. Now, here's the thing. I have talked to some lawyers about this, and what I've heard for the most part, it's a terrible ruling, and they're surprised it's happening this way because Twitter ultimately controls who can and can't go on this platform. What's interesting about this debate is that Twitter can ban you, and then you can't engage with Trump. So how does Trump create a public forum for everybody, but a private company can keep them out? It's like if you brought it to the real world, it would be as though Trump was holding a rally, but a private company stopped you from entering, thus preventing you from participating in the democratic process. I can't speak to the legality of that. I mean, it sounds like the courts are saying that's fine. To me, it's disconcerting. Everyone should be allowed to engage with the president in a conversation, and as technology permits. At a Trump rally, you can't sit down and yell at him. He can't hear you. On Twitter, though, people can respond. So everyone should be allowed to engage in this process. The argument we hear from AOC is, but they're not her constituents. And that's another scary argument as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what your district is. You are a federal politician in the United States of America. You are not immune from criticism from other people who live in this country. Not only that, anybody can go to your district and just, well, not anybody, but people can move in and out. But in this country, you can freely move between states. If you are a politician in the U.S. at the federal level and you are enacting policies that impact everyone, then everyone has a right to criticize you. If AOC votes yes on a law that will pass federal, firearm restrictions or something like that, well, then someone in Montana has a right to criticize her for doing that, and all other politicians. So yes, they still have a right to criticize you. And I refuse to live in a country where I can't criticize a politician. That makes America so great. But let's do this. I've got a couple things I want to show you about how it all just backfires. And if you were smart, you would stop pushing these suits. The Knight Foundation filed the suit in 2017, and it hit the left. Perhaps we should just respect the First Amendment. Admittedly, Trump shouldn't have blocked people. They filed the suit against Trump, and now you reap what you sow. The interesting thing here is that we're facing court precedent. Before the suit came down, a lot of people said Trump absolutely has a right to block people. Now that the courts have ruled, first the federal court, then the appeals court, well, then there you go. Everyone's got to play by the same rules. But as we see, this old story, 9 months ago, PayPal unfairly lumps Antifa with the Proud Boys. Well, what did you think was going to happen? When you pass these laws, it will be applied on everyone. But these, people like AOC believe they have special privileges, that the rules are only for everyone else and not for them. Now, I'll admit, I dug through Ocasio Cortez's Twitter history to try and see what her opinion was on Donald Trump blocking people, and it seems like she didn't really have one. Because I think, in the end, Ocasio Cortez completely agrees with Donald Trump. Trump's been involved in the lawsuit before she was, and it was only because of Trump's suit she now is challenging people. You know what that means? It means that AOC and Trump agree. She agrees with the president. She is siding with the president. Congratulations, AOC. You are now an ardent defender of Donald Trump's Twitter policy. Why? Because it benefits her too. And this is the nature of power. These people on the left can scream and cry all night about Trump doing something wrong until they want that same power. Then AOC jumps right up to defend Trump's position. Now, is she tweeting out, Trump should be allowed? No. She's arguing literally the same things. They are standing side by side in different courts arguing the same things. Well, I'm sorry. If you want to sue the president, you got to play by the rules too. And again, AOC isn't the one suing him, but, she's on the left, and this is it. The law is the law. The precedent is precedent, and there you go. Will Chamberlain responded saying, sorry, AOC, Second Circuit law is clear. If you use your account for government business, you can't block anyone. You blocked only 20 accounts. You think they were harassing you? Doesn't matter. You don't think you're above the law, do you? Well, apparently she does. And she is being sued as of last month. The last thing I want to say on the issue of free speech and censorship is how these policies actually impact people. Because sure enough, we can see this story from Rico just a couple weeks ago. The algorithms that detect hate speech online are biased against black people. They say a new study shows that AI models are 1.5 times more likely to flag tweets written by African Americans compared to other tweets. This is significant because when you lead a campaign, when you sue, when you take activist action, as the left likes to say, it will be the marginalized voices that are silenced first, those with the least amount of power. They have a right to speak too. And that's the point all of us free speech people have been trying to make. You are going to take rights away from people when you do this. Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is the perfect example of the left progressive ideology backfiring on itself. They go after Trump, they call him all the names in the book, they sue him, they win. Who gets hurt by it? Why? None other than a woman of color. A progressive socialist woman of color is also facing the brunt of the actions taken by the left. I'll end by saying one thing. We're putting on an event in the Philadelphia area, and we played by every rule they asked for. Every rule. More female speakers than male, proportional people of color, headliner, famed activist who opposes, bigotry. And then the activists launched a harassment campaign. And I differentiate between protest and harassment campaign because they're sending threats. And guess who was disproportionately affected? Why? It was the female speakers who are concerned about their safety and security, and they don't have the luxury of being, on average, taller, stronger, and for whatever reason, they're the ones who are being disproportionately affected. And that's the left. And we see it here as well. So perhaps fairness, free expression, free inquiry is the way to move forward so that a woman of color like Ocasio Cortez won't be subjected to what she views as harassment. If the left didn't sue Trump, AOC could continue blocking whoever she wanted. You are reaping what you have sown. I will leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m. It is a different channel, and thanks for hanging out. I'll see you there.